We begin today at the Mishnah on Daf Ayin Tes Amud Beis towards the bottom of the Amud. Zok Deilige Mishnah. Mi sheyatza hu ve'ishtoi lemedina sayam. A person was married. Already before he left overseas, he was married, and with his children or with his child, and he went out to Medina Sayam. He went overseas. Uba hu ve'ishtoi ubanov, and he returns with his wife and with children. And he says, Isha sheyatzis imi lemedina sayam. This wife that I left and I went with her overseas, and now he's coming back with her. Harehizu, this is my wife. And ve'elu banao, these are her children. So he wants everyone to know that these children are meyuchis, and he wants, number one, he wants to know that everyone to know that his wife is kosher, and she's a meyuchis, she's kosher, she's not pasul. Could be we're talking over here also about a kohen that has to marry a woman that's is kosher. And these are her children. It's not anyone else's children that she's taking with her, but it's her children. Says the Mishnah, Ein sarach lahavi raya. He doesn't have to bring any raya for this. Loya leisha, not regarding his wife, loya labanim, and not regarding the children. So Rashi explains he doesn't have to bring a raya regarding the wife because he was married to her before he left already. When he got married to her, that was checked out already. So there's no reason to have to bring a raya again. He doesn't have to bring a raya for the children either, even though you may say, who says these are her children? Maybe she adopted them, maybe it's someone else's. Because over here, we see that these children, Rashi says, are krucha machrea. The Gemara will explain that when you see these children are following their mother, we go with the chazakeh that the reason why they're following and they're so connected, attached to this woman is because it is their mother. So that itself proves it. What happens if this person comes back from Medina Sayam and he says, Mesa, that the wife that I was married to before passed away already. But here, these are her children. So maybe raya labanim. He has to bring a raya regarding the children, that these are her children. Now we don't have any raya that it's her children. They're not following her. She's not here. Maybe raya lisha. Regarding the woman herself, he doesn't have to bring a raya. Because again, like I said, he was married to her already before he left, and then they already checked that out. What's if a person comes from overseas? He wasn't married before. And he says, he's coming and he says, Isha nasasi b'medina sayam. I got married to a woman overseas. Hare hizu, this is the woman that I got married to. And ve'elu baneha, these are her children. So in such a case, maybe raya leisha, he's going to have to prove who is this woman that he married. We never checked this out before. He's coming now from overseas with this woman. We have to know, is she kosher or pasul? Ve'ein tzarech lahavi raya ala banim. He doesn't have to bring any raya regarding the status of the children for the same reason, because as long as the mother and children are alive, and we see the children following after the mother, once we know who the mother is, then we know that these are her children and they're also kosher. What if he says that he married this woman overseas and she died, Mesa, she already died, Ve'elu banah, and here these are her children. So now tzarech lahavi raya leisha is going to have to prove who the mother of his children was, or is. And va'ala banim, and she has to bring a raya that these are actually her children and they're not anyone else's children. So therefore, this is the case where we never checked out who the mother is, and we have no way to prove who the children are because the children are not following the mother. She's not alive anymore. So we have to prove both of these things. But the Gemara Rabbi Baravona explains the point that I said before. In all these cases that we say that once we know who the mother is, you don't have to prove who the children are. It's because the person's coming with the wife and the children are very attached to the mother. So for this itself, that we see how attached they are, that's a chazakah that this is actually their mother. In a brayse we learned about this. Isha nasasi b'medina sayam. A person says, I got married to a woman overseas, so maybe raya leisha is going to have to bring a raya who this woman is, like the Mishnah said. But ve'ein tzarech lahavi raya labanim. For the children, he doesn't have to bring a raya because they're attached to the mother. Now, the brayse says it actually depends what kind of children these are. Maybe raya la gedolim. He's going to have to bring a raya for the children that are adults. Ve'ein tzarech lahavi raya la ketanim. He doesn't have to bring a raya for the children that are young. Because if the whole raya regarding the children is the fact that they're attached and they follow their mother, you could only say that regarding little children. But regarding the adults, they're independent, so you're not going to see any raya. They don't follow the mother in that way, so you're going to have to bring a raya separately regarding these gedolim, who they are. When is it when it says over here that for the little children, you don't have to bring a raya because we see how connected they are to their mother? B'isha achas. If he's coming back from overseas and he's only married to one woman, if he says that he got married to two women, and then he says that one woman died and one woman is still alive, and now he's coming back with one wife and children that are attached to her, little children. So then, maybe Raya Leisha. First of all, he has to prove who his wife is. He married her overseas, so now he has to come and prove who she is. Vala Banim, and he's also going to have to bring a Raya regarding the children. And in this case, he's going to have to bring a Raya ala Gedolim Vala Katanim. He's going to have to bring a Raya for the adults and even for the little children. Even if you see that these little children are very, very attached and they're clinging to this woman, not necessarily is she their mother. Because this person himself is saying that he was married to two women, what could have happened is their mother passed away, and now his second wife is taking care of the children, and the children got very attached to the second wife. So proving who the mother is doesn't necessarily prove who the children are. They could be children of the first wife. Reish Lakish says, Lo Shanu, we didn't learn this halacha of the Mishnah here regarding the children, that when we see the children are so attached to the mother, that itself is a chazaka, it's a raya, that they are her children. So we're basically relying on a chazaka here, right? That we see children clinging to a woman, that's a chazaka that they are her mother. We don't rely on this chazaka, ela b'katshi agvul, only regarding allowing these children to eat kachim of gvul. What's kachim of gvul? Truma, that they can eat truma like every other kain. Avol b'yuchsin loy. But regarding Yuchsin, to rely on this chazakah that these children are kosher, it's, for yichos, for being able to marry, that they're not chalalim, that their children should not be chalalim, for that we don't rely on this chazakah. That's Rashi's pshat. Tosfos over here has another pshat that when it says here in the Gemara Yuchsin, what it means to say is regarding relying on this chazakah to give the einish of skila. You want to give an einish of skila, so for that we're not going to rely on this chazakah. But Rabbi Yechanan says, we rely on this chazakah that this child could eat trumah, and that we know that this child is a kosher kayin, he's not a chalal. We rely on it for everything. Says the Gemara was Rabbi Yechanan follows his reasoning elsewhere. Malkin ala chazakis. You can give malchus the punishment of lashes in a case where you're basing it on a chazakah. The Gemara is soon going to give an example for this. Cycling v'sarfin al chazakis. You could even also give an einish of misa, whether skila or sreifa, also all based on a chazakah. But Rabbi Yechanan says ve'ein sarfin truma al chazakis. You're not going to burn truma based on a chazakah. When there's a suffix where the truma became tameh, and there's a certain chazakah to rely on that it did become tameh, we're not going to burn this truma. And this is something the Gemara will explain in a minute. Why not? If we rely on a chazakah to give a einish of misa, for sure you should be able to rely on a chazakah to say that truma became tameh. We'll see, the Gemara will soon explain. So first the Gemara brings the examples where you see these various punishments mentioned here that we rely on a chazakah. Malkan ala chazaka, you give malchus based on a chazaka. Rav Yehuda, as Rav Yehuda said, Rav Yehuda, if there's a woman that there is a chazaka, there's a status of her being a nida, because Rashi says that in the times of the Gemara, the nida used to dress in certain garments, and all her neighbors saw. Everybody knows that she was dressing those garments of a nida, and therefore she has a chazaka that she's a nida. Baila loika le. So if her husband has a relation with her in that time, it's a lav, and you get malchus for this. So just based on the clothing she's wearing, as a chazakah, that's enough to give malchus. Like Allah mishum nida. Now where do you see cycling the soifan ala chazakah? So you can give the misa, whether skila or sreifa, also based on a chazakah. K'derabba baravona. Da'amar rabba baravona ish v'isha tinik v'tinoikis. You see a man and a woman, and they have two children, a son and a daughter. And we have a chazakah. When we see that this is a husband and wife, and this is their son and daughter that they raised, and it's just a sheikdilu b'toicha bay. So the husband and wife raised this son and daughter in their house. So based on this, we have a chazakah that this is his wife, and we have a chazakah that this is his children, even though we don't have mamish clear testimony telling us about their births and that this is their parents. But nevertheless, niskalin zeh al zeh, you'll give an einish of skila over here in this case, and Rashi says the einish of skila would apply if the mother would have a relation with the son. That's the Isser of Skila. And the Nisrafin al Zelza. And there's also an Isser of Sreifa that applies over here. And that is if the father has a relation with the daughter, then the daughter gets Sreifa. This is something that actually once happened. The There was a woman that came to Yerushalayim, V'tineg Murkav Lal Kseifa, and she had a child that was riding, that was on her shoulders. So this is the chazaka. It's a chazaka that this is her child. Like we said before, when you see a child clinging to a mother. So this is her child. Vigdilasai, she raised him, and then later what happened was, Ubal, this mother and son had a relation with one another. Vehevium lebezdin, and they brought them to Bezdin v'saklam. And they got skila. Or it says, another case says skaluha, that she got skila. Loi mipnei shebna vadai, not because we had it verified with Adim that this is her son. Ella mipnei shekara chachareo. Just the very fact that this child was riding on the mother's shoulder and the child was clinging to the mother, that's enough. It's a chazakeh, and we rely on that to give the einish of skila. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to another point that was mentioned before, that Rabbi Yechanan said that even though we rely on a chazakeh to such a degree, even to give a einish of skila, but nevertheless, when it comes to a situation of a suffix, if truma became tamei, here we don't rely on the chazakeh. So the Gemara will explain this. We're not going to take truma that became tamei and say that based on a chazakeh, it definitely became tamei. And what do you do with truma that's tamei? You're supposed to burn it. We're not going to burn this truma. No, Rab Shimon ben Lakish. So here this is actually a machlekes. Rish Lakish said, "Tzarfen al chazakis." When you have a suffix about truma, if it became tamei, you can rely on a chazakeh to burn this truma. But Rabbi Yechanan says, "No, ain't tzarfen. You don't burn the truma where there's a suffix if it became tamei or not." And the Gemara brings the source of the machlekes. They follow their opinion. They argued over here regarding this halacha of this tumah of the truma that's a suffix in this mission over here. The Mishnah says, you have a child that's playing around near a piece of dough. And the batzek biyadai, and you see that the child has a piece of the dough in his hand, so you know for sure that the child touched this dough. So Rab Meir says that this dough will still be tohir. The Chachamim metamin, and the Chachamim say, no, if you see that the child has a piece of dough in his hands, so you know that the child was playing around and touched this big dough, this big batter of dough here, or this big bowl of dough. Why is that? Where does a child hang out? He plays around in the street, and he goes even in garbage dumps. So a child goes in a place where there can be dead carcasses, there can be things that shrotzim there, and all kinds of things that are tamei. So a child, there's a roiv, there's a chazakeh. We know where a child plays around. So therefore, the chazakah says that roiv children are playing around in garbage dumps, and therefore they're tamei. So we see over here, we know for a fact that this child touched this dough. So the dough is going to be tamei. That's what the Chachamim say. But the question was asked on this, so my time in Rab Meir. What is the reason of Rab Meir? Why does he hold that we see clearly that the child touched this dough? Why isn't it tamei? So the Gemara says, Rab Meir makes the following cheshbon. Kasava, Rab Meir says, Roiv tinoikis metapchen. Yeah, it's true. Roiv children play around in the garbage dump. So we have this chazakeh. This is a roiv here, but this is not. This is a roiv that's based on a chazakeh. That this is the nature of children. Most children are outdoors in garbage dumps, and therefore we have that roiv. But then umiyatei metapchen. But there is a minority of children that don't play around in garbage dumps. But here we have another very important thing. V'isa b'cheskas tarei medes. This dough that you had here in the house, this dough has a status up until this suffix that came up with this child. It has a status of chazaka of being tahir. Therefore, says Rab Meir, smoich mi'uta l'chazakeh, we combine the fact that there are a minority of children that are not tamei, and also the fact that this dough has a chazakah up until this point that it was tahir, and therefore islare leiruba. This weakens the chazakeh that we say that most children play around in the garbage dumps to determine to say that this is tamei. No, that's weakened because the dough itself has a chazakah that it was tahir until this point. So therefore, that chazakah of the dough is stronger, and we say probably it was only the minority of the children that touched it. That's the Rab Meir. The Rabbanon disagree to this. Why? Because they say miyuta kemandalesa dami. When you have a roiv and a miyut, so you don't have to even pay attention to the miyut. Once you have a chazakah that says that roiv children play around in the garbage dump, the miyut of the children, we discard that. We don't pay attention to that b'chlal. The chazakah already determines that this is the way it is. So therefore, ruba v'chazakeh, ruba adif. The klal is, anytime you have a roiv, you have something that in a situation of a suffix, and you're trying to figure out how to paskin. So you have one way to paskin based on a roiv and another way to paskin based on a chazakah. Roiv is stronger. So over here, I mean, the truth is, it's really two chazakahs. But one chazakah says that roiv children play around in the garbage dump. Another chazakah doesn't say that there's any roiv. Another chazakah just says that the status of this dough up until this point was that it was not tamei. That's what's called usually chazakah de me'ikara. The chazakah up until this point was that it was not tamei. The chazakah that's based, that tells you that there's a roiv, is a stronger chazakah than the chazakah that regarding the presumptive status of this dough up until this point. So therefore Chachamim say that that this dough over here is going to be the dough is going to be tamei because the roiv is stronger. So now, the chazakah of roiv is stronger than the chazakah. Again? No, it's not based on roiv. That's not based. I don't know if you could say roiv isus atar, lav dafka. There's no. I don't think there's such a roiv. There are those that are tar. There are those that are tamei. This Isa here, up until this point, was tahir. So it's a chazakah de me'ikara, that this is the way it was until now. The raiva, the chazakah of the children, though, is a different kind of chazakah. That's a chazakah based on the behavior of most children. Most children play around outside in the garbage dumps. Okay, so now we have the opinion of the Chachamim. The Chachamim are metame. The question, though, is what's the pshat and the opinion of the Chachamim when they are metame? Are they takim metame 100%? Or are they only metame misafik? And here's the Gemara comes back to the machlokas of Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yechanan. So Amar Rish Lakish b'shem Rabbi Yishiyeh, zu hi shesarfen alas truma. This is a case, just like a case where you have truma that when you see it became tamei, what do you do with it? You have to burn it. This case as well. When Chachamim say that we rely on the chazakah of the children that play around in garbage dumps, then it's tamei. He means tamei mamish. It's 100% tamei. You have to burn it. Rabbi Yechanan says no. Ein zu chazakah shesarfen aleh truma. This is still not a chazakah, even though we're saying that the chazakah that shows you a roiv is stronger than the chazakah of the tara, of the dough itself. But nevertheless, all Chachamim meant to say is you have to be machmer that you can't eat it, but on the other hand you can't burn it either. It's a suffix. If it might be truma which is tar, and truma that's tar you're not supposed to burn. So therefore he says this is not a chazakah that you can burn the truma on it. It's still going to be a suffix. So this is like we said before, this is the pshat of the opinion of Rabbi Yechanan when he said you can't burn truma based on a chazakah that it became tamei. Why? Because even though you have over here a chazakah based on a roiv of the children, of the behavior of these little children, but nevertheless, since the dough itself has its own chazakah that it was tied up until this point, it doesn't completely take it out of a suffix. It's still a suffix if it's tied or tamei. Where is there a case when there's a situation of a suffix that Rabbi Yechanan would agree that the chazakah is strong enough that you would go ahead and burn the truma for this? So the Gemara says this is in another case. Kedetanan or Kedetanya, we learned in the Braise, Isa b'techa bayis. Also, you have a dough in the house. Ushrotzim utzfardim etaplim sham. And in this house, you have over there shrotzim and svardim. So the difference is a sheretz. There are the 8 shrotzim that the Torah mentions that they are metame. They're tamei. Tzfardeya is not one of those 8. Tzfardeya is a tzfardeya. Tzfardeya is not metame. There's another Rashi here brings. There's another kind of a creeping thing which is called a tzav. And it's very similar to tzfardeya. It's very hard to see the difference between this tzav and this tzfardeya. Looks just like a frog. So you have the shrotzim and the tzfardim that are metaplim shom that are there going around in the house. V'nimtzu chaticha is beisa. And then in this dough you see a piece of a body of either a sheretz or a tzfardeya. And there's a suffix. You don't know what it is. So here the Braisa says, "Imroiv shrotzim tmeya." If you have mostly shrotzim in the house, this dough will be tamei. Imroiv tzfardim. If you have mostly tzfardim in the house, then tahira. Then it's going to be tahir. So over here again, you have the roiv of the shrotzim going against the chazakah of the dough. The dough had a chazakah until this point that it was tahir, but now you have the roiv of the shrotzim. And over here, if you have the roiv of the shrotzim, it's going to be tamei. So what the Gemara is saying is, in this case, Rabbi Yechanan will agree that it becomes for sure tamei, and you can burn the dough. Why? What's the difference? Why over here are we saying that Rabbi Yechanan follows the roiv stronger than the roiv that we had before regarding the children, that most children are in the garbage dump? So here Rashi explains a concept, which is there's a difference between a ruba de isa kaman and a ruba de lesa kaman. Over here, the roiv that you have are the roiv of the shratzim that are actually in the house. This is an actual roiv. There's mostly shrotzim in the house. So the Raiv determines that this dough for sure became Tameh. The Raiv regarding the children, there's no actual Raiv that you have over here in the house. It's really a chazakeh. The Raiv regarding the children is really just a chazakeh. It's a chazakeh based on the behavior of most children that they go into garbage dumps. But it's not an actual Raiv right here, right now. So therefore, in that case, Rabbi Yochanan says that you're really basing it on a chazakeh and you can't burn the truma. Here, though, you have an actual Raiv of shrotzim in the house. Here, Rabbi Yochanan would agree that you could burn the truma. Says the Gemara Text, Rabbi Yochanan, we learned like Rabbi Yochanan's opinion going back to the case of the Raiv regarding the children, that over there it still remains a suffix, not like Rish Lakish. So we learned Rabbi Yochanan, he says in the Braise, Shnei Devarim, there are two cases that we compare to each other. Ein bem das lishol, v'asim chacham kimishiyesh bem das lishol. Okay, what's this Gemara based on? This is based on the klal that a suffix tumah in a Rishus HaYachid, we consider it to be tameh. However, there is a certain condition for that. Where is this learned out from? It's learned from a saita. When there's a man and a woman that are secluded with one another, so it's a suffix, we say that she becomes asa to her husband. But over there, the situation is, there are two people here, and you're able to ask them what happened. There's a das that you could ask. Same thing, whenever you have a suffix tumah and a Rishus HaYachid, in order for it to be determined as tameh, it has to be a situation where there's somebody to ask. However, this Braisa says there are two cases, even though there is nobody to ask, there's no das lishol, asum chachamim, k'mashi yesh bem das lishol, chachamim amachmer, and consider it as if there's someone to ask over here, and therefore the situation of a suffix, tumah, it'll be tummy. What are the two cases? One is tinoik, the case that we mentioned before, regarding this the child, where the child over here that touched the dough, and you're not sure if this child is toid or is tameh, you can't really ask the child, were you in a garbage dump, were you not? There's no das over here. And va'id acheres, and there's another case that the Gemara is going to explain right now. So the Gemara says now, tinoik hadamara. The case of tinoik is the case that we just mentioned. Now, what's the va'id acheres? What's another ma'hi? What's this other case? Isa b'toich habayis. So here, another case with the dough of truma that's in a house. You have dough in the house, and v'tana geilim, umashkim tmeim sham. Now you have liquids that are sitting, let's say, in a cup, and they're tummy. The mashkin over there is tummy. And you have also roosters that are going around in the house. And now what happened? V'nimtzu nekurim beisa. You see that there are holes in the dough from the rooster that was pecking with its on this dough. So what do you say in such a case? Tailin, loy eichlin, v'loy sarfin. This is going to be a suffix of tumah because the rooster could have drank from the water, and then with the moisture of the water, it went and it pecked on the dough. So therefore it became tummy. But we don't know this for sure. It's a suffix. So tailin, loy eichlin, v'loy sarfin. We're not going to eat, and we're not going to be able to burn it. It's going to be a suffix tumah. So over here, in this braise, it clearly compares the case of the child, that we say that the dough is tameh, to the case of this tarnagailas that makes the dough tameh. So just like regarding the tarnagailas, the Braisa clearly says Thailand that it's a suffix. We don't burn it; it's a suffix. The same thing we understand regarding the child, that it's going to be a suffix. This is exactly like Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Rish Lakish disagreed. Rish Lakish said when it comes to the child, the raiv of the children that behave, that they go in garbage dumps, is strong enough that we could burn the dough. But over here we see, like Rabbi Yochanan, that we compare the child to a rooster, and it's still a suffix.
Why? Because Ein Bem Das L'Shol?
No, the Ein Bem Das L'Shol, no, that's a chiddush to say that it would b'chlal be a suffix tumah. Maybe you would want to say that it shouldn't even be suffix tumah at all, because you don't have that condition. But over here, Chachamim u'machmer. Now the Gemara adds another detail over here regarding this case of this rooster. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi. If the liquids that you have are clear, white liquids, so then when you see the rooster was pecking in this dough, and you're not sure if it was moist or it wasn't moist, so you have this kind of suffix. If it's red liquid, let's say it's wine, so then you don't have to have any suffix about this, because if it's true that it was this rooster that was pecking at the dough, made the idea, you'll see the color, you'll see the moist, the red moistness over there on this dough. But the Gemara asks on this, it's very hard to say this, you can rely on this. Maybe it was a little bit moist, but it just got absorbed into the dough, and you can't notice it anymore. So there still is a real suffix over here. Rabbi Yochanan said about this distinction that Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, this is something that Rabbi Shua ben Levi heard, then he said over. Beribi means a person that's the Gadol Ador, he's a great individual, he heard this and he said this. But Upirusha Leishama, he didn't hear the explanation of it because of the question that we just asked. So therefore, Rabbi Yechanan said that the way to explain it is as follows. Leishanu ela b'mashkim tzululin. When do we say that it's possible that the rooster, when it was pecking in the dough, that its beak was wet? That's only if it was clean waters, or maybe even clean wine. What kind of a clean wine? Shabubua shaltinik nikaba, that the image of a child that would put his image over there, it would reflect because it's so clean. But if it's murky, dirty waters, then loy. So then even after it gets absorbed in the dough, you would notice the dirt there. So that's what it really meant to say. Even if it's red, that's still something that you don't necessarily notice. But if it's dirty, it's murky waters, that's something that the dirt you would be able to see. So in such a case, there wouldn't be a suffix about this. Okay. The Mishnah now continues with the halacha of yichud. The next blot or so, two blot or so, or a blot and a half, we're going to learn about the halachas of yichud here in this Mishnah. A man may not be secluded himself with two women. That's even two women. We'll see in the Gemara why that is. One for sure not. Now we're obviously what's the whole inyan of yichud based on? That it's a gzeira of chachamim that they shouldn't come to do any aveda together. But even if it's two women, you're also not allowed. Avol isha achas misyachedes shnei anashim. But if it's a woman and there are two men, that is allowed. Rab Shimon says af ish echad misyached im shtei nashim, that it is allowed for a man to be with two women. Bizman sheish leimai, if it's his wife that's there also. And not only that, v'yashan imam bepundiki, they could all sleep overnight in an inn. Even overnight, we rely on a person's wife to protect him, that he shouldn't do an aveda. Even though you might say at night they're sleeping and his wife might fall asleep and she might not protect her husband. I don't know. This wife that knows that there's other women here in this pundiki, in this inn, she's not going to sleep too well. She's going to make sure that her husband is not going to do an aveda. Sagt the Mishnah weiter. Adam im imay ve'im bitay. A person may be secluded with his mother or a father with his daughter, even though usually the Isser of Yichud applies to all other kinds of arayas, but not when it comes to a father with a daughter, a mother with a son. And not only that, v'yashin imam b'kirav basar. They could sleep in the same bed. They could even sleep in the same bed where their skin is touching one another. But once the child becomes an adult, then zu yushena b'ksusa v'zeh yashin b'ksusa. If they're sharing the same bed, each one should be in their own garment. Sagt the Gemara, my time. What's the reason for the first halacha of the Mishnah? Why, if there's two women here, do we say there's still an Isser of Yichud? Shouldn't we rely that one woman will stop the other from doing an Aveda? So the Gemara says, no, we can't rely on that. Tana de Be'Eliyahu, Eliyahu taught, Hayil v'noshim daitan kalis. When it comes to women, they can be very easily convinced of things, and therefore one might allow the other one to do the Aveda, and then she'll say to herself, I'll also do an Aveda. So therefore they can't protect one another from this Aveda. Minan Emili, says the Gemara, from where do we Bechlal have a source for this whole Isser of Yichud? So here, when the Gemara says Minan Emili, this is Omer Rabbi Yechanan says Mishon Rabbi Yishmael Remez Lichud Minat Torah. That's that. And the Minan Emili means where is there a hint for the Isser of Yichud Minat Torah? Minayim. Because as I mentioned, the whole Isser of Yichud is Gzeira Midrabanan. But the Gemara here brings a Remez from a pasuk for this. Shanam, the pasuk says, this is regarding Avodah Zarah, Ki yisischa achicha ben imecha. If a brother of yours, which is only a maternal brother, so you share the same mother, and that brother will want to convince you to serve Avodah Zarah. So the question is, V'chi ben ein mesis, only a son of a mother, that you share the same mother, that's the one that might convince you to serve Avodah Zarah. Ben av ein mesis, if it's a brother, a paternal brother sharing the same father over there, it's not possible that he would want to convince you. Why is the Gemara pointing out, or the pasuk that is pointing out, ben ein? Ella, here the pasuk is saying to you as follows: Lo melucha, to tell you, ben misyachad imay. A son may live with a mother, like our Mishnah said, between a son and a mother, there's no Isser of Yichud. But you're not allowed to be with any other Erev. There's no seclusion allowed between any other Erev and the Torah. So what the pasuk is saying is, a son is always there with the mother. He's always in the house with the mother. He's always living with the mother. So therefore, the possibility for a brother coming and convincing you for Avodah Zarah is regarding this son that has the same mother as you, because he's always there in the house. And therefore he's always there also privately in the house, and he may come to tell you to serve Avodah Zarah. A son that shares the same father is also, but the pasuk over here wants to teach you this halacha. The pasuk is saying dafka the mother to teach you this chiddush that the son together with a mother may always be there in the house, and therefore he might come to convince you to serve Avodah Zarah. This is all a remez, obviously, but the Gemara right away asks, Pashte dekra b'maiksiv. What is the simple pshat of the pasuk? What would be the simple answer why the pasuk is saying that only a maternal mother might convince you to serve Avodah Zarah and not a paternal brother? Amar Abayis says, Lo mi boye kama. The pasuk is actually saying a bigger chiddush. Lo mi boye ben av. Needless to say, when it comes to a brother, you share the same father, the sonile. There's a certain competition, there's a certain hatred between these brothers. Why? Because when it's going to come to Yerusha, one brother and the other brother are a competition. So therefore, this brother knows my brother is not necessarily giving me always the best advice. So if a brother is going to, they share the same father, is going to come and say, let's serve Avodah Zarah, you won't necessarily listen to him. You're going to be a little bit, you're going to be suspicious about what he's telling you. Ella Phila Ben Aim. What the pasuk is telling you is, even when you have a brother which you're closer with him, you share the same mother. There's no competition between brothers that share the same mother because they're not competing over any Yerusha. Over here, you might be more convinced to listen to him. Kamashmalon, that's what the pasuk is saying. This brother you're closer to and you share the same mother, don't listen to him when he comes to tell you serve Avodah Zarah. Says the Gemara, name masnisin the loik habishol. Shall we say that our Mishnah does not follow the opinion of Abba Shaul? What did Abba Shaul say? That a man could be misyached with two women. Says the Gemara, the Tanya, we learned in the Brayz says follows. Kol shloishim yoim. What happens if, God forbid, there's a little baby that passed away within 30 days? So then, Yetze b'cheik, he's carried out in the cheik, and the people hold him to carry him out to bury him. And v'nikbar v'isha achas u'shnei anoshim. And he can be buried with the presence, if there's one woman there, and there are two men there. Now, going out in a Beis HaKvaris is a place where there's an Isser of Yichud, because it's away from the city. It's Yichud is lav dafke in a home where the doors are closed, but a Yichud is also when you're away from the public, and the Rebbe once spoke about the Isser of Yichud. For example, if you're taking a taxi and you're riding on the highway, and the driver is a man and the rider is a woman, there could be a issue of Yichud. Right? So over here, when they're going out into the Beis HaKvaris, so you're allowed to go out Isha Achas Shnei Nashim, Avoloi b'ish echad Ushtei Nashim, but not if it's a man and two women, like it said in our Mishnah, because with two Nashim they don't protect each other and there's still an Isser of Yichud. But Abba Shaul argues, Abba Shaul oimer af b'ish echad Ushtei Nashim, that a man and two women is also allowed. So you see here clearly, Abba Shaul says that two women will protect each other. Says the Gemara, no, that case over there, we're talking over here about burying a little baby, that's a different story. I can tell you Abba Shaul would agree to what it says in our Mishnah, that usually we can't rely on two women protecting each other with one man. But over here, B'shas Haninos, because we're talking over here about a levaya where a person is mourning and a person is grieving, Taver Yitzre, a person's Yetzirah is broken, is not, we don't have to be afraid that they're going to do an Aveda. So in this case, Abba Shaul says we can rely on these two women. Says the Gemara, so why would Rabbanan disagree with this? But Rabbanan Savri La Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbanan say, like Rabbi Yitzchak said, Rabbi Yitzchak, you can't rely on the fact that they're grieving, that they're not going to do an Aveda. Rabbi Yitzchak Darshan, the pasuk says, Ma Yisayin Adam Chai Gever Al Chatov. Why is a live person complaining about his Avedas? What is this pasuk saying? Afila B'shas Ani Nusai. Even in a time when a person is mourning and grieving, this time for a person, Yitzrei Mizgaber Olav. His Yetzer Hara will still overcome him. The person can't trust himself even in such a kind of situation. So that's the machlokes here between Abba Shaul and the Chachamim regarding this situation. Do we say that the Yetzer Hara is broken or not? Now, Abishol, how does Abishol dash in this pasuk? Since he disagrees, he says that in such a situation, a person's Yetzer Hara is broken. Kiksiv b'ahu, what that pasuk is saying is something totally different. B'misraim al midoisav ksiv. That's a person that he sees his measure that Hashem gives him. He sees what Hashem gives him in his life, and he complains about it. This is what it's saying. Ma yisraim al midoisav. How could a person complain about what Hashem gives him? V'chigavar al chatov. Did he overcome all of his sins? Is he so perfect? He should be happy the very fact that he woke up in the morning, he says Maidani and he has life. That itself, he should thank the Eibishter for it. So it's a completely different shot on the pasuk. So Abishal does not learn from here that a person has to be concerned even in such a time for an Aveda. The Rabbanan say that no, I'll prove to you that even in such a situation, a person can do an Aveda. There was a story with a woman, there was such a kind of a case, there was such a kind of a case of a woman that she actually took a baby that was really alive, and she faked it as if this baby is dead to go out to bury this baby. And she went out of there to do an Aveda with the man that went with her to bury the baby. So you see, even in such a time, even you have to be concerned, even if you're going to tell me, what Rabbanan here adding is, even if you're going to tell me that what Abishal is saying is true, that there's another pshat to the pasuk. And in a time of a person mourning and grieving, you don't have to be afraid that you're going to do an Aveda, but you still have to be afraid in such a situation. You see a story once happened that a woman faked it, so you can never know what happens. Taisus over here adds details to the story, a pretty graphic story. I'm not going to repeat it. If you look in Taisus, he adds over here what this woman did. Okay, weiter. Let's go to one more detail over here that it said in the Mishnah. Aval isha achas. When it comes to one woman with two men, the men protect each other and there's no isra of yichud. This is only two men that are kosher. We know that they're the Talmidei Chachamim, or that we can rely on their kashrus, that they behave properly. If there are two people that are paretz, their behavior, they're not modest men, and we know that their behavior is not proper. Even one woman with 10 men is also going to be a problem, because they're not embarrassed from one each other, and they can do an aveda with this one woman. And the Gemara says, there was a story with men, Asara, B'mita. They went and they took out a woman and they faked it that she was dead. And really this was a woman that was alive and she was an Eishes Ish, and they carried her out to the Beis HaKvaros to do an Aveda with her. Rav Yosef says, Teida, I'll prove to you that by men you can't trust them with one another if they're prutzim. The michbri be'asara v'ganvi. Look, you have a bandit of thieves. They're 10 people. They support one each other in the Geneva, and they're not embarrassed from one another. And we read it together. I'm sorry. V'ganvi kshura. If there's a very heavy beam that they're trying to steal from a construction site, they'll go 10 men together and they'll carry it together. V'lo michsvi madadi. They're not embarrassed from one each other. So the Gemara says, shall we say we have a raya here to what Rav says from a Mishnah? The Mishnah says regarding the Saita, so the Saita is taken up to Yerushalayim to go drink the waters over there to determine what happened. So what does it say on the way? So you have to have two Talmidei Chachamim that should escort the husband and wife to Yerushalayim. Shema Yovei Aleh B'derech, because you have to be sure that the husband will not have a relation with his wife on the way. Rashi brings the halacha that it says regarding the saita that the husband, may not have a relation with her after she becomes asr as a saita, and not only that, if he does, then the waters of the saita don't work anymore. So you have to have two Talmidei Chachamim on the way to protect them from this. So the Gemara is medayik here to prove what Rav said, that Talmidei Chachamim in Shida al Meloi, it says here that you send along two Talmidei Chachamim. Not just any two people. Why not? So seemingly the reason is what Rav said, because if it's tam any two people, they could be prutzim. We can't rely on them. So they'll do an aveda. If the husband will do an aveda, they'll do an aveda. You can't rely on them. It has to be two Talmidei Chachamim that are kosher that you can rely on. So the Gemara says, no, that case is different. Shani Talmidei Chachamim over there. The reason you need Talmidei Chachamim is not because you can't rely on them. The Yadi Lasruyebe, they should know the halacha. They have to know to warn the husband, be careful, you have to stay away from your wife, because if you can have a relation with her, then the waters of the Saita are not going to work. You're going up to Yerushalayim to figure out what's going on with her, but if you have a relation with her, it's not going to work. So you only need Talmidei Chachamim for the Hasra. So it's not ayah to what Rav said.